All right, and here we are roasting a bird. This is probably our go-to method for preparing chicken because it's pretty easy, fairly hands-off once you get it started. So again, I salted the meat the night before so the skin is nice and dried out, ready to go. But one of the key things in cooking poultry is to make sure that the breast meat stays moist while that darker meat, the leg and thigh meat, has time to cook. So there are several different ways where you can really try to kind of infuse additional moisture into the process. One way of doing that is by actually creating an herb butter mixture. So we just have butter here, we put some thyme from the garden, some salt and pepper. So I'll just kind of mix that up and we'll actually put that in between the skin and the meat. So I know oftentimes you'll see some herbs on top of the skin, but in order for this butter to actually penetrate into the skin to allow it to be more moist, we actually need to put it in between the skin and the meat. So kind of just lightly mix it together here, kind of lift up the skin. You kind of have to break some of those connective areas a little bit to get it in. So you want to make sure you can get it in as far as you can, even down by that leg and thigh meat. So you'll get those nice chunks kind of all throughout. Another way and another method really of getting that meat nice and tender and nice and moist is to actually do some type of marinade the night before or a few hours in advance. Samin Nasrat from the show Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, she has a cookbook by the same name, has an amazing buttermilk chicken recipe that we love to make here in our house. So you actually marinate the whole chicken in buttermilk and salt the night before. So that allows it to really take the acid from the buttermilk along with the salt to help create that moisture in the chicken itself. So that's a great way to add a little bit of flavor. Another one that we classically think of when we're thinking of Thanksgiving, but can work for any bird, is to baste throughout the cooking process. So that essentially just means taking some of that cooking liquid that we'll be adding here in just a little bit, and then putting it back on top of the bird as we go throughout that cooking process. So here's not an exact science, but we have butter kind of all mixed throughout, so that as the heat really kind of turns up, this butter will start to melt and it's going all over that meat to really make a more flavorful experience. Apparently I can't say that word today. So we are also going to want to stuff the cavity of the bird because again, as it's heating up, it's really allowing some of those flavors and aromas to penetrate the meat. So here we're just going to do a really simple preparation. So I have some garlic cloves and I'm just going to simply smash them just to kind of release some of the compounds. I'm going to stick those into the cavity. I took some extra thyme from the garden. We'll stick that in. And then we'll take some lemon and I will just kind of gently quarter this so I can stick it in. And then we'll tie up the legs. So you don't have to tie up the legs, but it does make for a more kind of compact bird and it is a prettier presentation, I think. And so often we'll tie those up. But if you're going to stuff anything in the cavity, you'll want to do that before you actually tie up the legs. So we'll take some cooking twine. A method that we find works well is to actually just tie it to one leg first, just a little overhand knot, and then wrap it around the other leg, tie it tighter, and then you can kind of go around both and tie it up that way. So then our bird has already been seasoned. Let me finish tying that, and it is ready to go. So we'll actually cook ours today in a Dutch oven, but there are several different methods. So you can use a really shallow roasting pan. You can use something like a Dutch oven. And the pan that you choose will somewhat dictate your actual cooking method. So there are several philosophies when you're doing roasted birds. So one is to actually start it with a really high heat, 450, maybe even 500, and really get that skin nice and browned, and then you turn down the temperature a little bit, maybe to 375, 400, to finish cooking out the rest of the way. Or you can do something like we're going to do today, where we get our Dutch oven, and we'll put the bird inside, and we're going to put our cooking liquid around it. So in this case, we're going to use stock that we had made earlier. So a little bit later in this video, we'll actually show you how to make stock. You can freeze your stock and then just get it back up to temp. or in this case, we just pressure canned it, so it's already shelf stable. We'll put our liquid around about a cup and a half or so. And then we are actually just going to put the lid on the Dutch oven, cook it for about 30 minutes like that. Then we'll take the lid off and then allow it to brown at the end of the cooking time. So it doesn't really matter if you do the browning at the beginning or the browning at the end. But again, you want to have that nice crisp skin, which you get by having the skin exposed to that heat directly, rather than with something like a lid on. So it generally will take about an hour, maybe 70 minutes to roast a bird. So it's pretty doable as long as you give yourself a little bit of time to get everything prepped in advance. You can stick it in the oven and then just go ahead and check it for that doneness like we talked about earlier. Look at it about an hour in and see how it looks. So we'll put the lid on and stick this in the oven.